With the reports from both Bloomberg and Nikkei last week, a lot of people lost hope in a Nintendo Switch 2 and also alongside of it, a new 3D Mario, maybe the sequel to Mario Odyssey, could be coming out for this holiday. But there's another report that came out from elsewhere that is actually suggesting that maybe this could still happen. In other words, it looks like there's still hope for a Super Mario Odyssey 2 and a Nintendo Switch 2 coming this holiday. Let's talk about it.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about how there's still some level of a reasonable hope that we could be seeing new hardware at the end of this year with a brand new 3D Mario game. Now, I know there's been a back and forth here, and we really don't know what's going to happen, so you should take all of these different reports with a grain of salt. We are speculating on what's happening based off the reports we're being given. And with the latest report we're seeing here, it does look like maybe there could still be something happening this year. So, like we talked about last week, Bloomberg reported that Nintendo's be focusing on producing a lot of Nintendo Switches for this upcoming fiscal year, Nintendo Switch 1. And with that, a lot of people assumed, okay, if Nintendo's focusing on manufacturing a whole bunch of Nintendo Switches, then they're not working on a Switch 2 yet. But then also around the same time, Nikkei, a Japanese publication, reported that Nintendo is communicating with suppliers for their successor, and it's looking like they're aiming for a mid-2024 release. But we got another report here that's actually coming from Famitsu, you may have heard of them, and Zenji Nishikawa is suggesting something a little different. Nishikawa is suggesting that they may release their next-gen system within 12 months. This is January. Within 12 months is in less than a year. So that would suggest by this holiday. Now let me go into something else that was said by Nishikawa. I personally think Nintendo will make some moves in terms of new hardware. I got the news that a super VIP person from an American semiconductor manufacturer who seldom comes to Japan is quietly conducting a personal visit to the country. The company's products have also been used in Nintendo game consoles in the past. And apparently there are many who believe Nishikawa was referring to Nvidia. Nvidia is the company that makes the hardware for Nintendo nowadays. So this may all add up here. And I do think that there is a lot of sense to be made for a system to come out this holiday. But with the reports from Bloomberg and Nikkei, I've shied away from believing it's a likelihood anymore because, well, you know, typically with things I want, I feel they usually come later than expected. But I also think that if Nintendo could come out with a new system for the holiday, they would prefer to do that rather than releasing it midway through the year. While I do think they could have a nice build-up if they were to wait until, say, the summer of next year, if they were to announce it, say, like in February or something, they could have like a nice 4 to 6 month build-up leading to the system's release, and they could really hype it up and have a good lineup ready. It would still be better for them to release during the holiday. There's a reason why most systems come out during the holidays. I feel that it's usually extenuating circumstances that lead to a release outside of the holiday. Now, in fairness to Nintendo, they've done a great job of showing that they can release games or systems in the last half decade or so pretty much whenever they want, and if they're great, they will find success. But I also think that the general rule should be the target here. I don't think Nintendo woke up and had a meeting like, you know what, let's release Nintendo Switch 2 in July. Why? Because I just want to enjoy the summer beach weather while I pay attention to sales numbers of our launch. I don't think that's the reasoning here. So if they were doing a summer release, that's just because when things made sense for them to release it based off manufacturing and sales projections and game lineup, like there's a lot of different factors that go into when they decide they can come out with a system. But something that should be noted, as I said earlier, we should take everything with a grain of salt, right? So it should go both ways. The reports from Bloomberg and Nikkei, in the past they've told us things that have not turned out to be true. Remember how we thought the Switch Pro was imminent and they were going to be announcing it any day, and then it just turned out to be Switch OLED? That was reported by Bloomberg. So there is a history of inaccurate reports or misleading reports in the past. No one is 100% here. Even Nintendo sometimes tells us when a game is going to come out, and then later on they have to delay it because plans change, things happen behind the scenes, or maybe sometimes there's just information that's conflated with other reports and things going on, or just a misinterpretation of what's going on. There's honestly a lot of factors here, so even if you 100% trust the source, you should still take it with a grain of salt. Nothing is 100% until it happens, really. So with that all said, looking at what Nikkei said about a summer 2024 release, yeah, that could happen, and maybe that is still the most likely option right now, but with this other report here from Famitsu from Nishikawa, maybe a summer 2023 release is not a stretch, and if Nintendo's coming out with new hardware, they're gonna want a game to push it as well. And if Tears of the Kingdom is coming out this May, Zelda, the big thing they use to push new hardware usually, unless they have Mario, then Mario seems like a very likely candidate for a launch title this year. And it would be quite fitting because if we go back to 2017, Breath of the Wild came out in the early part of the year, and Mario Odyssey came out in the latter half of the year for the holidays, and we've been waiting a very long time for that game as well. So they definitely have a Mario game in development. It may be complete already, and Nintendo's simply waiting for the right time to release it. And considering the Mario movie is coming out this April, it does make sense to have something big Mario related happen not too long afterwards. So I do think there is still a hope that we could be looking at a banger holiday where we have a new system with a new Mario game. Now, this new system wouldn't mean that your Switches would be invalidated. If we look at how Nintendo handled the 3DS, there will still be new Nintendo games coming out for the Switch for at least 2 more years. At least 2 more years. You look at how successful Switch is right now, you look at the amount of games that people are buying for it, like, they're going to support the system for a long time. So if you're one of those that's upset about a new system coming, don't be. The Switch is going to be supported for a while. And actually, on the note of Switch specifically, I think we should be looking for a price drop at some point or another. Right now, Switch is selling really well, but if Nintendo is truly going to transition to their next system, I personally think that a price drop is necessary. I have a hard time believing that the original Switch is going to be out there selling for $300, and then Nintendo comes out with a $400 system that's several times more powerful and does all these amazing things like 4K and upscaling and whatever else it offers. I just don't think they're going to do that. I think Nintendo coming out with the $350 OLED model was a little bit of an experiment, and it's an experiment that's gone well because the OLED is currently the best-selling version of the Switch out there right now, and it's at $350. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo does go in the direction of maybe $400. While I do think $300 would definitely be a great way to sell a lot of the systems, they may think that they could come out with a more premium system at $400 and still keep Switch around for a few years, it being relevant and it simply being the more cheaper model. But still, a $100 gap or a $50 gap with OLED in mind is not really a healthy gap. I think there's got to be more of a gap than that. So either A, the next Switch is way beyond $400, like $500, or there's a price drop. The Switch has yet to see a single price drop yet. And with good reason, because the Switch is still selling well. Nintendo's still struggling to meet demand. So, for sure, they should not have price dropped up to this point. But now, as they're focusing on apparently ramping up production for Switches, maybe they're going to find themselves in a scenario where their supply is outweighing demand, which would then suggest that maybe they should get a price drop out there to sell even more Switches. And when they do that, once they lower the value of the Switch, it will then make even more sense for a new system to come out at a higher price tag. That way they can have different reasonable tiers of pricing. A $250 or $200 system in comparison to a $400 system seems like a healthy gap, but a $50 to $100 for a full-on next-generational leap, that doesn't really make any sense to me. So again, I'm still waiting for a Switch price drop. When that Switch price drop is announced, whenever that happens, I think that's a good sign for a new system being around the corner. But we shall see. Take this all with a grain of salt. If we have to wait till summer 2024 or even holiday 2024, is it really that much more of a wait? I don't really think so. We're getting Tears of the Kingdom this May. That's a big deal. There will be games coming from Nintendo afterwards as well. If we look at the entire lineup of Switch and how Nintendo's handled it, they've done a great job of giving us consistent quality games throughout, and we have no reason to think that they're going to stop. So I have full confidence that we have tons of games to play and there's nothing really to worry about. They're going to keep the momentum going, but when that next system comes out and when that next 3D Mario comes out, it's going to be an exciting time, but we'll just have to wait and see when that happens. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I'll see you all really soon. Take care.